It's Wednesday night, undressed from Conroy's Emporium, where you can get anything your heart desires. Have you washed your hands tonight, Conroy? Very tasty. My name's Jeremy Taylor, and welcome to the talk show that pretends to care, and where we ask customers to join our team. On our regular panel tonight, Louis Orlando,
hey,
Kathleen Taylor, Ivo Ivanov, and Donna Kane Swan.
God.
Oh, yes. And from the customers, for the customers especially, we're going to be talking about mobocracies of mobilities mobilizing their mobocratic mobilization. And the mobilizer will mobilize the mobocrats because mobisms will mobilize mobbishness.
Morbid.
Mobocraps are mobile mobsters being mobbed by mobcats while they're mobile in their monster machines. Oh, yes.
I can't think of any.
Mobs is what we're talking about today. And I want you to have a little think about this. I challenge you to go on the
interwebs.
Weather cable thing.
It's a series of tubes.
Yes, that thing. And look up Mr. Trump's son, who is running the election for Mr. Trump. Okay? And then tell me that racketeers and mobsters are not trying to take over the White House.
Okay, hold on.
Well, hang on.
First, we got to do the Jeremy to American translation. When you say mobs, you're referring to the mob.
Yes, racketeers.
You're not talking about like a bunch of people outside with pitchforks.
No, that's in France.
Okay. So yes, we're
We
talking
banned
about
that. It's
the
not allowed.
mob. Yes.
Yes.
La
And we also
Cosa
banned it
Nostra.
here.
Yes.
That's why you don't have that sort of thing going on.
I see. I got it. So yes, I actually did look up Trump's
And
son
have you seen
earlier.
any palaces being mobbed? No.
I don't really see a lot of
Are there any
palaces
records?
here.
And I got to
Palaces
tell you,
being mobbed
I
in
got to
America?
tell you, the '50s greaser look. Even the mob does not support that anymore.
You will not be able to find a single palace in America that has been mobbed since we left.
Unless you're talking about a flash mob.
It's sort of
Aha!
a castle tea rooms. Is that a palace?
Castle, dear, castle.
That's different, huh?
Please get the pronunciation.
You know,
Yeah,
the building
castle.
that looks most like a palace or a castle in Lawrence is the administrative building downtown on Mass Street. It is a castle.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
work.
if you look
Yeah,
at it.
it's-
Yeah.
it's lovely.
And there are a lot of people that would love to grab some pitchforks and attack that thing. You know, if you try to get your car registered.
It happens every day. Just register your car or go try to vote on the busiest days. You'll be mobbed.
What about mob films? For me, growing up, I think the mob film de jour, it was always The Godfather. And I think that's what started me on one of my hobbies.
Which hobby?
My collection
Killing
of
people
threats.
and burying them in the backyard.
Yes, my collection of threats.
You weren't supposed to tell anybody about that, were you?
No, we try and keep that to ourselves. My collection of threats. I collect threats. As many people know, I have threats on my wall.
I've been in your
in the
office like
office.
100 times. I've never noticed the
Oh,
threats.
they're there. Yes, yes. Hidden, but they are there.
Oh, they're
And
hidden.
My
It's
It's if he
favourite
gets
threat,
angry that he reveals the wall of
I
threats.
see.
My favourite threat, of course, is the one made by the Godfather himself to a supplicant. And the supplicant is coming for a favour on his daughter's getting married. And the Godfather says, I do this favour for you today, and one day, and that day may never come, I will ask a favour of you. And I have not yet found a better veiled threat
Well, what was
of
the one
iron
about?
love.
I'll make him an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I always thought that one was a good one.
There was one you were talking about the other day where he said, if you reveal any of this, I will make sure
You
that
are, of
things
course,
are
referring
found.
to Sherlock Holmes
Yes.
and Mr. Mycroft. Mycroft said, if you repeat anything you think you saw or heard in this room here today, on behalf of Her Majesty's Secret Service and intelligence forces, I can assure you that you will find things on your hard drive that will entail at least 15 years at Her Majesty's pleasure. Now run away and look scared.
I like the last bit. Run away and look scared.
Where was this? Which Sherlock Holmes was this?
This
It's
is
the
Sherlock.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch, the
Ah,
one the
gotcha.
American
Yes,
ladies are in
I
love
don't
with.
think the others have computers in
Well,
them.
great
Well,
series.
no, that's the reason I ask is because the CBS one is set in modern day.
And I would like to say for anybody who happens to listen to this before December the 31st, January the 1st, there is a one-off Sherlock
Yeah.
or late at night where they go back to Victorian times and search for a
You did
ghost.
see the producer's little blurb in the paper where he said that 3 reporters had asked him in dead earnest, how would it work if Sherlock didn't have a phone, a smartphone, and to which the reporter replied, "There is a precedence."
Oh my goodness.
Organized crime, for some reason, has always been magnetic. You know, people just get drawn towards movies and literary work about the organized crime. I don't know why.
I think it's not that general. Maybe guys.
Okay, I have.
Well,
Yeah,
because
maybe.
the movie depictions of it always look so romantic.
What is
yeah.
the
What is romantic about someone blowing someone else's head off?
That you don't see that in real life. What they, that's not what you're exposed to. What you're exposed to in the movie is the suits, the cars, the women, the nightclubs, the famous friends.
and also the belonging to a kind of a giant family.
Yes, exactly. It is a family.
You find a weird brotherhood on the dark side of things, and you belong to it, and they will protect you with everything they have, but you also cannot escape it, and you will pay the price if you escape. You know, that's why probably people get so attracted to shows like The Sopranos or movies like The Godfather and Casino and so on and so on. What is, Louis, I know that you, by the way, you brought up that topic, so I'm sure that you have something to say about this.
Yeah, so my thought is that the mobster movie in particular appeals to this part of American culture that is really something that we don't have. And my question is whether or not the mob movie, the mobster as portrayed in the movie, has as wide an appeal outside America. Like, how did
Yes,
you come
it
to
does.
see The Godfather, Jeremy? Like, did you see
was
it
on at the
back
cinema.
home?
Yeah.
Like in its initial run?
Yeah, well, we have gangs in London.
Uh-huh.
And,
But
and
your gangs in London aren't anything like what you saw from The Godfather, were they?
They're incredible.
Organized crime is everywhere.
Organised
Evil.
crime.
It goes by another name, but
In particular, in London, in the 60s, for example,
the
the
craze.
swinging 60s, the Cray brothers, they were amongst the most unpleasant people you could. They make Chicago mobsters look like angels.
Yeah,
And
merciless.
then more recently,
Margaret
Van
Thatcher.
Houston. No, there was
Absolutely.
there was another guy, I think his name is Van Houston or Van Hooper or something like that, who decided he wanted to build himself a Versailles. Right now, in London or near London, you have to have planning consent. But like everywhere on the planet, you have to have planning permission. He just built it. So when the authorities said, "Yeah, you really shouldn't be doing that," he made it quite clear that any people from the local council city who turned up, he'd break their legs.
Yeah.
Right? So when they actually eventually decided that they better do something about it, they had to go and get him with a SWAT team. Because his men would have literally, where I used to live, there was a builder, and my wife has seen them. The police went round one day and said, "Here, you parked your car illegally." So he looked at this guy, got back in his Jaguar and drove off, followed by a little police car. Nina, 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 up the hill to where he lived.
I'm sorry, please do that siren sound one more
Nina,
time.
Nina, Nina, Nina,
How it
Nina,
sounds.
Nina.
They're really kind of wimpy.
So the little police car pulls into the yard, right? This is honest, no, true.
Yeah.
Genuine now, genuine.
Yeah.
Pulls into the yard. By this time, the old boy had got out of his Jaguar, had walked across to his backhoe, right? And he turned the backhoe around and dropped the bucket on the police car. Sharp end down, right?
Holy hell.
He's still in prison, by the way, after they sent, when he got a job, they got jobs to do tarmacking, doing asphalt on the roads. If he knew he was in competition with somebody else, right? What do you do? These machines you see doing the house for $1 million a go, right? So easy. There's not another one for 300 miles. So what do?
You blow up your competitors.
You set fire to it.
Yeah.
You destroy it. That's
Interesting.
what you do. These people are still here. They're still alive and kicking.
Yeah.
No. I have no doubt that organized crime is probably as old as society.
Right.
But there seems to be this fascination that Americans have, at least in my limited experience with foreign cinema, I haven't seen anything like the American Mobster
Oh, for
movie.
goodness sake, you were brought up in South St. Louis.
East St. Louis, South St. Louis, that's Mobtown.
No,
I was
Louis,
meaning,
Louis
if I
is-
had meant East St. Louis, I said East St. Louis.
Louis is saying that he hasn't seen in foreign cinema the equivalent of The Godfather, and
Not to say that the movies don't exist,
Yeah.
but they don't exist
on that level.
on that
Well,
level.
you will see it in Russian movies because
Great
the
Russian-
Russian mob is so powerful. And the movie you and I discussed that just came out last year, Leviathan, was that?
Oh,
yeah,
what a
that-
great movie!
You know,
Unbelievable.
the Russian mob is definitely
Yeah.
a part of that.
The Russian mob is ever present in
It-
almost everything.
It is
in
ever
Russia.
present. I think what's missing is that oftentimes when you see mob depictions, they're brutal in other depictions, whereas again, there's kind of a haze of romanticism.
Yes.
and I don't
That's
mean
my point,
the
yeah.
criticism, romanticism, but romantic as in loving.
Yeah.
And it's interesting
on
you
American mob
You
movies.
use the phrase loving. The Kansas mob, for example, after the war in the 50s and
yeah.
60s.
Very powerful here.
Very, very powerful, but much loved, many of them, because they were into making money. This is before they got into drugs and all that sort of thing, but generally speaking, what they're trying to do is to make money. And it would mean that if you go back into the 20s and the Depression, the guys who are running a block, for example, from the mob, whose responsibility is a particular block, a family have run out of money, and it's Christmas and it's cold. The mob would arrive with a sack of coal, and the sack of coal would be put outside the door, and no one would touch it.
If there was
No,
something
but-
in it for the mob.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
going to say it's
and
a
what they would-
push-pull.
yeah, absolutely. They would
Because,
expect a
because
vote.
your neighborhood was safer.
Yes.
You and your possessions would be guarded, but your neighbor, maybe one town over, is having his livelihood confiscated every other week. In
And of the 150
essentially
police,
tribute.
of the 150 police in the local squad, 100 of them were owned by the mob. But what they were saying is, look, when you're cold and you haven't got a job, right, we'll give you a sack of coal or some food or a piece of ham or something. All we want's a vote. And so we just want your vote.
And your soul.
But you will be,
and-
you will be in debt forever.
Yep, but they weren't going to go around blowing people's heads off, unless, of course, you had a Conroy's, like we're in at the moment, and you weren't prepared to pay your dues.
It's
in which
very-
case you might find yourself, dead in the back of your car.
It's very interesting that what occurred here in the beginning of the 20th century in the United States took place during the transition towards market economy in the Eastern world, but extremely condensed. It's like the mob that was disorganized over there, just elements that had potential to become a mob, kind of looked back at history and took a very quick lesson in history and decided to replicate the entire process that occurred here. The racketeering, the organizing, the illegal drugs and prostitution. And it took place literally in 5 years and was very condensed and very violent. It seemed chaotic, but very quickly...
Well, I was going to say the transition that enabled the mob to grow from perhaps small, localized
Yes.
Groups to a nationwide front was Prohibition.
Yes, exactly.
They needed something that they could control on an international scale, which Prohibition was.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we did not have private ownership of anything. There was no manufacturing of goods. There was no private shops. There was nothing. Everything was governmental. Everything. Nobody had $10,000 in the entire country. Nobody had starting capital, and so very quickly people started opening little shops, trying to make their own business, and very, very quickly, before they could even open the doors of their shops, the racketeering network was developed extremely fast. They found former athletes, wrestlers, boxers, people in the martial arts, armed them with baseball bats. And it happened like this. It was so fast. It was obvious that they knew that there was an example. And from scratch, the mob was organized. And you know what's interesting is how quickly those rogue elements with the baseball bats, how quickly they put suits on and became insurance agencies. And very
like legitimate
powerful.
insurance
And now
agencies.
they're in the government and in the parliament. I have friends, sadly, I have to admit, I have friends that I went to college with that became this kind of insurance agents and now are in the government.
I'm saying I find it difficult to believe that they had to borrow from our example, because all anyone had to do was borrow from political examples throughout history. Borrow from the Vatican, borrow from
And
royalty.
certainly-
I
Oh,
mean,
that's right, isn't it? Blame the Catholics. God, dear, nobody expects
no,
the Spanish
I'm
Inquisition.
spreading the wealth here. You could blame almost any structure, but my God,
I want to see the
mean,
Pope with the baseball
the
bats.
Medici-
That's going to be awesome.
The Medicis had mob rule down to a fine science.
So, question. Okay, you just described the scenario that took place in, like you said, a very short amount of time.
Yes, very condensed.
Is there that same kind of love and adoration in your home country for the mobsters now that we still seem to
Oh,
have
the
here in America?
Bulgarian mobs.
There was certainly a period right around that time where people were fascinated by it. There was a guy, his name was Georgy Iliev, and there was another guy, Ilya Pavlov, and those were the biggest mafia characters. They're now dead, killed by snipers. About 10, 15 years ago. Actually, a lot of the biggest mafia figures were killed, and nobody really knows who. They never found who killed them. They killed each other. But there was books. There were books. There were TV series. There were movies made. And I think each culture, if you look around the world, each culture has their own organized crime that carries cultural elements, like the Yakuza in Japan, like the Cosa Nostra in Italy.
The Ivanovs in Bulgaria.
The Ivanovs in Bulgaria.
Ivanovs in Lawrence.
Except,
Yeah.
of course, there's no Swiss mafia. Nobody's afraid. Well, Sepp
Hey.
Blatter, the FIFA
Sepp
president.
Blatter.
Oh, Joe.
Can I point out that I think everybody's got this all backwards?
How do you mean?
Mobs are not something that spring up and have to be destroyed. Mobs are the beginning of society.
Okay.
When people
that
were
goes-
That's
civilized-
the point I was
This actually
saying.
goes to
Why
my-
did they need a
Yeah.
model? Because
No, yeah.
it goes back
No,
in
what I
history.
mean
My
is-
notion.
People
is
got
actually-
civilized with mobs. They
The
were
rec-
families who beat up everybody else. It's when you are able to conquer the less societal. It's when you are able to conquer the mob society that you become a civilized society. But it always comes back in times of strife and change.
The what I was trying to say is how quickly, in 5 years, the mob figures recognize that they have to get legitimized extremely fast. They have to make the next step. What Al Capone didn't do, what Lucky Luciano didn't do, they did not get legitimized. These guys could not wait to put on suits to start their insurance companies with the capital that they had acquired by beating up people with baseball bats and offering them fake protection. And these people very quickly realized we gotta step into the government, start actually imposing legislature that's going to protect our money.
And then their great grandchildren are going to be philanthropists.
Exactly,
It
like the
changes.
Kennedys.
They are
Like the
still-
Kennedys.
They
Yeah.
are still the mobs, even today. I mean, 2-3 years ago, mobsters were put in prison in Kansas City for skimming ATMs.
Yeah, and
I think somebody liked your comment.
Yes,
Yeah, no, it's
absolutely. Speaking of British movies about the mob, I like The Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. I watched recently a movie called Legend with Tom Hardy.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, it's
but
really
Bane
he
from
plays
Batman?
he plays he plays twins, and I guess they're real characters.
They're the Cray brothers. They're,
Yes.
they're,
He's
yeah.
probably basing it
Yeah.
on
Ray
Craig.
Brothers.
Just outstanding movie.
But then one of the best mob movies of all time of
Yeah.
the 60s.
He's British?
Is British. It had Michael Caine in it.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Caine.
Yeah.
And the quote from that is, "I only said blow the fucking doors off."
Oh, it's Wallace and Gromit.
It was the Italian job. It
Yeah,
was the Italian job when the British mob decide that they're going to go and take on the Italians, the mafia, and they're going to steal the Fiat wages, payroll, the Fiat payroll.
Yeah.
And the mafia get to hear of this, and as the crew are making their way down all the way through Italy, you know, on their way to Turin to do this, and Michael Caine is leading them in his Aston Martin, and they come to a pass and there's a tunnel,
Yeah.
and drives out of the tunnel this huge great yellow monster digger and a Ferrari or a Maserati or something, and the Italian mob boss gets out and he walks up to Michael Caine's Aston and he looks at it, having got out of his Ferrari, and he looks up and he goes, "Pretty car."
Ah, very good.
Pretty car.
Yeah.
He doesn't say tasty.
and then raises his hand, twirls his wrist, and the bulldozer comes along and dumps the Aston in the gorge, where it is to this day.
And then the
incidentally.
cops come and go, Nina, Nina, Nina,
Nina,
Nina.
Nina, Nina.
So,
That is where people first saw the Mini Coopers. The Mini Coopers were everybody. And today we have what's it, Ocean's 11? Is it?
No,
Or something?
it's the Italian job.
It's Italian job.
Yeah, they redid it with Marky Mark.
By the way, the greatest mob movie that I've seen, and that's going to sound sacrilegious to a lot of you guys who think Godfather is the greatest movie of the 20th century. To me, the greatest mob movie ever made was not made by an American, was not produced or directed by an American. It's,
Get out of
it
here,
is-
you Bulgarian
damn foreigners.
heathen.
It is called Once Upon a Time in America. And it is a mesmerizing from the first to the last second movie with the magnificent James Woods and Robert De Niro. Jennifer Connelly's probably first movie. She was probably 13 in that movie. Just absolutely stunning and so underappreciated, undeservedly. With Sergio Leone directed it. Ennio Morricone wrote the incredible score. I cannot stop watching this movie to
I think
this
you and I
day.
have watched it once together at least.
I don't want to say it's aged well because it just doesn't age. It's just a fantastic movie, and it's not just, it's about the Jewish mob in New York, beginning of the century and during Prohibition, and it follows the story of this mob from when they were children until their death, and it's just such an epic and beautifully
What
executed
about Gangs
movie.
of New York, which I have never been able to bring myself to watch because it just
It
looks
is
too
a
violent.
great movie. It's truly extremely brutal, but yeah, it's a great movie that it has to do with the Irish mob. So, you know, I love that one too. But Once Upon a Time in America, and again, it's very romantic, but it also speaks about the loss of innocence and the human condition. It's a little bit more than just about the mob, and about friendship and sacrificing friendship and greed, what greed does to friendship and the human nature.
So we have to look at the mob today,
Yeah.
and is the mob there? And I imagine that if we but knew the mob, mafia, whoever, Cosa Nostra, who the mafia, it's not the same thing. I thought it was, and apparently it's not the same.
Cosa Nostra and the mafia?
not
Yeah, they're
the same-
different organizations,
Same
yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
And the mafia treat Cosa Nostra with much respect.
Yes.
Then, of course, you have the Vatican, who they both treat with a huge amount of respect. But I do wonder, when you look at photographs of Mr. Trump's son, and we have a photograph here being shown of us, the two boys, are they not capos?
Is
I
this
mean,
a-
they-
Oh, yeah.
These are
Oh,
these
definitely.
Are
Oh,
Trump's
sleazy, yeah.
They
Greased
really
back.
need
Yeah,
some,
is that
some PR.
are those
people
both
working on
guys?
Those-
is that
those
not
two
Lady
guys.
at the Trump?
And
Lady and the Trump.
what I'm wondering is whether or not
Yeah.
the organized crime, right, is using Mr. Trump. They're mobilizing Mr. Trump into a mobocracy of Trumpisms.
Yeah. Where are you
to
going
take
with this?
over the White House.
Oh.
Is this, in reality, I put it to you guys, that in reality what is happening is that the mob is trying to take over the White House? And
They already tried. They tried taking over the country
That
with
has
the Real
happened a long time ago.
Housewives
Yeah, that
of
did.
New Jersey, and now they have a different reality show, which is Trump.
Yeah.
He is reality television, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
Who
I
knows?
would tend to seriously doubt that they would really want to waste their time. Why control the White House when you can control the individual politicians that deal with your specific interests, whether
Yeah.
you're talking about like on a
and,
state
and we have, of
local
course,
level.
missed
Yeah.
completely, I think, the other mob.
Oh dear.
There are two other mobs. I mean this in all seriousness, and that is the Mexican cartels
Oh gosh.
He's
and ISIL, who are truly evil.
Oh.
I mean, we say ISIL's evil, but the Mexican cartels aren't very far behind.
They're
them.
doing exact same atrocities. They've been doing the same atrocities that we are so outraged about when we see ISIL decapitating people and mutilating, killing and burning them alive. They've been doing it to thousands and thousands of innocent Mexicans for years, and we can't do anything. Speaking of mob
Want to
movies,
do anything about
yeah.
it? Yeah,
Did you guys watch Sicario?
haven't seen it yet.
What an outstanding! And again, it's about the Mexican cartels. It's a new movie, probably be nominated for several Academy Awards.
We have the bizarre situation today,
Benicio del Toro,
or
maybe.
recently, where the Taliban are reacting to ISIS by decapitating ISIS fighters that they capture. I mean, where is this all going to end? But I ask you to let's lighten this show just a touch,
Yeah.
because we if we're not careful, we are running up. This is being recorded just before the new year as we move into 2016, and I'd like to go around the panel and ask them individually, what is the most significant event of 2015 to them? What is the single most significant event? Just one event. We don't want to go on at great length, and I'm not talking about, well, my pussycat had kittens and now I've got pussies all over the place, or anything like that. Just one simple event. Let's start with Kathleen. You have an event.
My most significant event, I think, will impact all our futures forever, and the futures of our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and it is the Climate Summit. Yes.
That is very
The
good.
Climate Change Pact was finally agreed by a lot of countries, and it might actually help. Some step has been made to try to save us all from climate change.
To get 148 countries to agree on anything is almost impossible. And you look around and you have to admire the fact that they were able to come together and agree on something that's so important. We are talking, I was thinking about an event that can actually unite the world to do something. And I was thinking about an impending asteroid impact.
Well, what is your fifth? I'm going to drag you back. I'm going to force
Yeah.
you to do this.
Yeah.
I know my fellow Bulgarian friend from Europe. What is the most significant thing that happened for you in 2015?
Well, it's...
Then I'm going to bring you back
Yeah.
to what might happen. to you.
Yeah, it's obviously very tempting to go with the Paris attacks. It's obviously very tempting to go with the rise of bigotry and racism with the Trump candidacy. There are other tempting topics like the attack on the Russian airplane.
So let's pick one.
Horrible. No, I'm going to go with something positive, actually. I'm going to go in a completely different direction because I'm going to leave those to you guys. I know that you want to talk about these.
No, I don't. Mine has nothing to do with any of that.
Okay, I'm going to go with something that surprised me personally. And this was the decision of the White House to put an end on the embargo with Cuba. And reestablish a relationship, diplomatic relationships.
Actually,
with
we have
Cuba.
not put an end to the embargo. That's Congress's job.
Yeah,
and they
but-
have not moved on it at all.
Well, that's probably is inevitable at this point. I think that was an extremely important step that the Obama administration made, and that basically the borders are open now, and people are traveling to Cuba, and business decisions are being made, and businesses are looking for investment in Cuba. And this is big to me because it puts an end to 54 years of icy cold relationships with a country that's 100 miles away from us and is extremely important, strategically extremely important place. If you look at Cuba, it's basically a shield. It shields the Gulf. And it's it is.
The reality is, if we can work with
yeah.
Germany and Japan
Yeah.
after the atrocities of
And
the Second
also,
World
to me
Don't forget
personally,
Britain.
to me personally, it also signifies pretty much the end of the Cold War. There's two countries, as you know, that are last bastions of militant communism, and that was Cuba and North Korea. And to put an end on the Cuba situation was extremely important. It's a sign of things to come, and it's a sign for optimism and good feelings.
Donna, what was your most significant event of the...
Mine was the Marriage Equality Act, which was both a very happy and a very sad day for me. We've talked about this before. I've lost so many friends throughout the years, especially obviously in the 80s decade, and so it was a sad day in the fact that they are not alive to see it, but a very happy day in knowing that there is a future in that, and it's well deserved, long overdue, and it thrilled me.
Yeah.
Louis Orlando.
For me, it's the media portrayal, displaying, however you want to say it, of the police brutality.
Oh, yeah.
For me, it is a mixed event because it is a part of American society that I'm familiar with. I have known has existed all my life, but I am quite literally astounded that it actually made it to the public, the general consciousness of the country for whatever good or bad reasons.
For me, it was...
That's a good one.
We'll come round in a moment just to look forward and make predictions, because the good thing about predictions is we can look forward in a year's time and we'll see what our predictions were. But for me, it was the Charlie Hebdo attack. I happened to be at home when it happened, watched it happening, and that police officer who was murdered in front of millions and millions of people, and the first time they showed it, they actually showed him being killed. They didn't show it again. They showed it before, and then they cut.
Right,
But
Charlie Hebdo was 2014.
Yeah, that's right.
Not the Paris
You mean the
attacks.
Paris attacks.
You mean
Paris
the Paris
attack,
attacks,
yeah,
recent
yeah.
Paris attacks? Okay.
And people getting, or people minding their own business who aren't interested in whether people are Muslims or Catholics or Protestants or Hindus or what have you.
Yeah.
And I think it has galvanized the society to say enough with this. And my wife and I experienced this in Belfast in Northern Ireland when the children, the kids at school said, enough, we want to be able to go shopping. We're not interested in the old men with suits who don't believe in whether it should be a Catholic or a Protestant place. We want to be able to go shopping.
It's a
They
great
said
lesson that shopping usually defeats
and that's-
evil.
And that's the point. They wanted ordinary.
Yeah.
So when you see the sign that says "Keep calm, carry on," that's what it's all about. Prediction. Let's start with Lewis. You were the last. What's your prediction for 2016?
I predict that we're going to hear a lot more in the news about this relatively unheard of person named Kim Kardashian.
Oh, God.
We've already seen an awful lot of her rear end.
No, I think my prediction is, I don't know. Come back to me. Give me a
I
second.
already know what mine is. I want to see if anybody else has it.
I'm with you, Lewis. As in, come back. We seem to be in this moment of such great chaos and ideas floating here, there, and everywhere that I'm finding it hard to see what our focus is.
Let me help you just a little bit. A very interesting article from the UK about gambling. This is something that the mobs do very well. Let's go to Kathleen. Get her.
Well,
to,
I have an actual prediction as something that's going to happen in the next year.
Well, what I was thinking was let's talk about this just for a minute,
All right.
and then we'll come back to the prediction to see if it helps people.
All right. That's a good idea.
Get their heads together. Of course, as many Americans know, gambling in America is largely illegal.
Stupid law.
You can do it. You can do it at a horse race or something like that. But you can't.
Some
There aren't
states.
gambling shops where you can go into like we have in England. Gambling in England is completely legal. And
Land of
one
godless heathens.
And one of the things that
Well, make up
people,
your mind.
some people do professionally is to gamble on politics. Is to gamble on elections. Okay, and the attention researched, lavished on today's presidential race. The people doing that don't realise that there are people back in the UK punting tens of thousands of pounds and, if you like, dollars on the outcome. So people will be
Not
betting.
just the final outcome. It's on various parts of it, on the GOP race, on the Democratic race, at any stage. It's really fascinating the way that
these
betting
are
is going on.
multi-million-dollar organisations. William Hill, Ladbrokes. These are well-known national betting operations who are taking bets on who's going to win. And of course, this was the main thing that the racketeers were dealing with. You know, you would have a bar in Kansas City somewhere, and upstairs was where you did the betting. That's what happened. That's
You
where
sound
the
like you're
mobs-
talking from personal experience.
I'm
there,
just,
Jeremy.
I don't know where I found this.
He was around that
But
yeah.
I'd like to start, if I can, with the predictions.
Go for it.
If you look at this purely from a betting point of view, and you're looking at odds and who's likely to win and who's not, and you really analyse this as a business, you take all the angst and feelings out of it, right? You just look at it purely on a business point of view. I predict the first female president in November. That's what I reckon.
And that's Ted Cruz, right?
And that will be Ted Cruz. No, Hillary Clinton, I believe, will be the first American female person of female persuasion.
So I have a question.
That's my prediction for 2016.
I have a question that may influence my opinion of your prediction. For the betting that goes on in England, are the English elections bet on as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
And do they have the same level of accuracy, veracity?
No. The difference is the reason they are so fascinated by the American election procedure is that it goes on for so long. Now, you don't just take a bet on who's going to finally win. When you take a bet, it's really like buying a stock. You can sell that bet before the outcome is decided. So if you took a $100 bet on George Pataki, you're not going to be able to sell that on. But if you took a $100 bet on Trump when he was 101 to get anywhere, you could now sell that bet on for $10,000.
Gotcha.
In the UK at the moment, so far, they think $200 million has been placed.
Yeah.
$200 million overall or $200 million on Trump?
No, overall.
Gotcha.
Well,
And I don't think they're
you might call
actually
it the next president market.
betting
$200 million.
on who's going to finally win it. Well, I mean, the bets themselves might be on who finally wins it, but the market itself is more like the stock market. You've got a commodity, you
Sounds
buy
like a
and sell it.
combination of the
That
stock
actually
market
is
and a
how
horse race.
in
Yeah.
Vegas how they do it as well. I tend to follow the betting on a subject that interests me, which is the Oscars, and it's broken down in the same way.
Yeah.
Who's going to win this individual race? Who's going to take that? It's broken down.
Hillary Clinton is on at about 54% at the moment.
but that's currently if she runs against Trump, who's unelectable, right? But if she runs against Rubio or Cruz, then probably the odds will change. I'm guessing
Every
because
time I
she-
hear somebody say Trump is unelectable, I just cringe a little bit because we have this history of electing these
But that's based on
unelectable
numbers.
people.
It's
That's
been
based on huge numbers.
changing as
Yeah.
each election goes along. The outsider is getting a better chance every 4 years, and worldwide, far left, far right, Scottish nationalists, weird parties are coming to the forefront. It's a change in the dynamic of how information gets around, how publicity gets around.
So my job as host is to drag you guys back. And Kathleen,
Oh,
you
my
were going to come
prediction.
with your prediction. Mine was we have the first female president in America.
I'm not predicting the race because that's a fool's game. I don't want to do that. What I'm predicting for that'll happen in the next year is that the European Union will dissolve.
Wow.
The European. So Kathleen is saying that the European Union will dissolve. Okay. Let's come up.
Refugee
Are you-
crisis, the whole thing.
Lewis is waving at me, and
Yes, it
ladies
means I'm
and
ready.
gentlemen, boys and girls, he's
didn't want-
ready. Are you ready, Lewis?
I think
We're
I'm ready.
Yes, he is.
So I think,
So-
in light of your Kath's news story
Kathleen's, yeah.
that she found so incredibly interesting, which I did too.
Oh, the
I
betting,
think-
the betting, yeah.
No. The
Oh, the European Union.
No, not the. Sorry, I said the wrong thing.
You weren't ready,
the
were you?
most significant
You're
story
not ready,
from
are you?
last year, the environmental
Oh,
news.
right, yes.
I think that we are going to see the American legal system become much more friendly to environmentally friendly cars, meaning Teslas will be allowed to be sold everywhere in the country without having to go through a dealership, as well as the big four automaker or the big three automakers coming out with purely electric cars.
We're on our way because I don't know if you've been listening to the rumblings, but the diehard Republicans who still are climate deniers are not being backed up by the major corporations, which they had been for decades.
Yes.
Now they're being deserted in droves because the major corporations know which
So
side
since
the
you're
bread is
mouthing
buttered
off,
on.
Donna, what do you reckon
Yeah.
your prediction for 2016?
I'm sorry, guys. I just don't have one. I really
Will
don't.
you be here in 2016?
I hope to be.
Good. Excellent.
That's a good prediction.
I think
Ivo.
Donna. Well, I want to go back to Donna because I don't think that's the right way to phrase it. I don't think that Jeremy necessarily means prediction. He's probably asking you what is the event that you're looking forward to in 2016. What is the one thing that
I
you're
would love to see Hillary president. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love it. I'd also wouldn't mind seeing Bernie Sanders president. I just want to, I mean, the bottom line is I want to see a Democrat as president. If for no other reason, obviously I'm a Democrat. Obviously, much of my politics, not all, much of my politics is liberal. But we're losing our sense of checks and balances. And a Democrat in the White House will keep that sense of checks and balance because we won't see it in Congress. We won't see it necessarily in the judiciary. So
So that would be the best thing, not just seeing a Democrat in the White House. I could take or leave that as if Congress started working. If it doesn't really make that much difference who you've got in the White House.
I'm sorry, but I
if it
can't.
works the way it's supposed to.
That'd be lovely, but I do not see that for decades to come.
Yeah,
as
you're
long
probably
as long as we have what appears to be this type of status quo, which they have ensured, and I'm
yeah.
not blaming them for that. If the Democrats had been able to seize the moment, they would have ensured it. But at this point in time, we have ensured a Republican Congress for decades to come.
Yeah.
And
What's the fix for that?
What's the prediction from the Bulgarian part of our team?
Well, I don't have a prediction. Again, obviously, everybody's looking for. I'm looking forward things in 2016. I'm looking forward certain events, and obviously, everybody's eyes are directed towards the presidential election. And I'm not looking forward to that. I hate the entire thing that surrounds the presidential election, the commercials, the bombardment with negative advertisement, the tension. I hate it. What I'm looking forward to is probably the 2016 Olympic Games that will be held for the first time in South America in Rio de Janeiro.
Do you predict that we will get through it without an
form of incident? Here's what I mentioned this to you today. ISIS, if you look back at 2015, it's been a horrible year in terms of terrorist activity. ISIS has realized that they cannot function geographically in one spot. They will be destroyed. As a centralized force, they're doomed because it's easy. In fact, I think strategically we want them to be in one spot so we can take them out. I think they realize this and they're starting to export their terror all over the world.
I think they realized that a while ago.
But
I'm
now
not sure
they're.
that they are.
If you look back at 2015,
No, there are groups all over Africa and other countries now pledging allegiance
Yeah.
as some type of subcontractor for ISIS.
January to December 2015. You look at every month, and you will see a terrorist act that has shaken the world. Whether it's a beach in Tunisia, whether it's an airplane in the Sinai Peninsula, whether it's Paris, Asia, Thailand, Northern Africa, the United States, everywhere except South America has not been hit yet. And that's a great event for ISIS to target so they can establish some presence in South America and attack. The Olympic Games taking place starting on August 5th. There's plenty of time. Security should be incredible, but still, this is a wild, crazy, giant, chaotic city, and there will be a lot of targets of opportunity. So
and
I
it's,
want to see
it's a
it.
city where bribery and corruption is rife.
Yes, and they
Not to mention bacteria.
So
I was just going to say, just give them all a glass of water.
So
in
yeah,
Rio, and
biological
that'll do them in.
biological warfare has always been an option for ISIS. So I'm looking for the Olympic Games to be terror-free and to be wonderful and to kind of unite the world again for something beautiful and good. And that's what I'm looking for in the upcoming year. I'm not looking forward to the darn elections. So
And you could.
I do know what I'm looking forward to. I'm really hoping Alex Gordon and the Royals can make a deal.
And I can't believe we missed this in the 2015. This was a legendary, fantastic year for the Royals and for us as a community here in Kansas City area.
You mean electing all those guys to the world to the All-Star game, right?
Yeah, and people
Power of
were
the people.
are actually, so many pundits were upset that there were 8 Royals present in the All-Star game. Well, now we can look back and say, hey, that was not enough.
Yeah.
There
Well,
needed
I
to be
was
more.
going to try and
That's what
stay
having
away from
rabid fans
sports,
do.
but I have to say, of all of the things that happened in 2015, finding out from the man himself that, in fact, basketball originated from soccer was, that was made
what the
Naismith-
hell?
So
when-
apparently they played
when-
with a soccer ball the
when
first
Dr.
game. And
Naismith
Are
said
we
that they
talking
used...
in Canada?
in Springfield, Massachusetts.
He started
but-
it with using a soccer
Started
ball.
in Canada.
Yes, but he used a soccer ball. And clearly...
So clearly it's British by origin, since
therefore,
Canada
it's a thing.
was.
But we have found out
British.
that lacrosse, in fact, is a truly American sport.
It's Native American sport.
Native
yeah.
American.
Yeah, that's
Often-
true.
So with
Sometimes-
that, folks,
Played with skulls.
thank you very much indeed for listening to another version of Conroy's Undressed, or an Undressed Conroy.
Oh,
Dude,
no.
either
we
one
don't
of
want the
those
visual.
sound
No.
good. Yeah,
No
yeah.
visual,
How about
please.
Wednesday? Let's stick with Wednesday night undress because I don't
that's
want
what I told my
have any
friends was the
notion.
name of this.
the word
Wednesday night
Let's
Undressed
plug
from
that
Conroy's.
name.
that word.
The words undressed
I don't
and Conroy
want-
should not be used in the
exactly.
same
There's
sentence.
gotta be
God,
some
actually, I'm
separation.
sorry, but all of you undressed should not
I
be
don't look
undressed.
too
Oh,
bad
wait a
undressed.
second.
I
gotta-
don't look on.
You haven't seen my six-pack.
Yes, I know. Us Europeans, you see.
I've got a keg, if that matters.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's wish you a very happy new year. If you're listening to this after the new year, we hope you have the rest of a happy new year. We'll see you very soon.